Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm doing a 3 looks 1 palette using the Natasha Denona Safari palette. Now this does hold some nostalgic memories for me due to being the first luxury eyeshadow palette I ever purchased at my first ever 20% off Sephora sale back in the days. So I definitely have some nostalgic value for this palette, but when I first got it, I initially was having some trouble working with it, and I kind of just assumed that was because I was still an eyeshadow beginner and I didn't really know what I was doing. So today I'm just revisiting this palette with a much more analytical look, using these 3 looks to see what I think about it again. And I guess you'll see what happens. As usual, for this look, I am just starting with my base shadows so that I can deepen it up later. All 3 of these looks use no false eyelashes, only mascara, so for those of you who don't use false eyelashes, I did want to show off looks that you can still wear without having to put on false lashes. I wanted to keep this look fairly pink and berry toned, so as you can see I'm just sticking within the same color family. Natasha Denona structures her palette such that you can go across or vertical to create a look, or even diagonal if you want. And in this palette, the horizontal rows that she has set up are all really great for creating looks that are either analogous or monochromatic. So today I'm sticking with more of an analogous look. As you can see, the deeper shade applies on pretty well, but I have to use the lighter shade prior to kind of help to blend it out. And then I'm just going to be placing that darker eyeshadow along the outer half of my lower lash line as shown here. I remember when this palette first came out, a lot of people had a lot of problems with the top row of this palette, and a lot of other people were comparing this to Subculture, which had also released recently, and so people were discussing a lot about how some of the shadows in this palette and the Subculture palette just seem to be really difficult to make in general. That being said, I do feel like eyeshadow has come a long way since then. Since this look is all matte, I am going to be using the lighter colored shades in this palette to highlight and sculpt the inner corners of my eyes, as you can see here. Finally, I want to use this dark colored eyeshadow as an eyeliner. So it's going to be thick since I want it to show up, but because it's eyeshadow, I can keep it nice and soft. So you can see here how I kept the bottom of the wing fairly well defined and nice and sharp, but the top is much more soft and blended into the rest of the eyeshadow. And then finally I'm going to be taking what's left on my brush and putting it on the lower lash line, just on the outer third. You can see here the eyeshadow is complete, and now with some mascara, you can see how the look has come together. I also went ahead and used pretty neutral blush and bronzer, and then I used a cooler tone, lighter tone lip. It's definitely not a color I usually use, so, you know, it makes me look a little bit dead, but overall I like it. Now for the second look, I'm going to be doing an all matte cut crease. This was definitely super experimental and it worked out okay, but what I really wanted to do this look for was to see how that dark blue shade works, because I do remember having some issues with it, and I just wanted to revisit this shade now that I have greatly improved my skills, I think anyways, and see how I like it. It packs on really well, and there's definitely not much issues with building up the pigmentation, and the blending is okay, but you can see that there are some places where the blending is not as good. Because I am trying to angle out my eyeshadow a little bit more to make my eyes a little less kind of short and stubby, I am doing the eyeshadow in the shape that I am, and I'm leaving the space close to my lash line blank since I'm putting other eyeshadow on top later anyways. I'm still kind of messing around with cut crease shadow shapes that I prefer best. I'm just kind of trying out new ones to see what I like. I still haven't quite figured out which shape I like best yet. I am now using a P. Louise eyeshadow base as the concealer to structure my cut crease. As you can see, the other eyeshadow is still peeking through, and this is going to impact how the next shadow lays on top. You'll see that there was a bit of mud that was created because the shadows began to blend together. I should have applied on more to make more of an opaque layer, or I should have just used a very high coverage concealer. And then I'm just going to blend out the top dark blue shade a little bit while I'm waiting for the P. Louise base to set. So as you can see, I am using orange on top of blue, and this definitely can work, but because I did not make the primer fully opaque, it looks a little bit muddy towards the edges. So I'm just doing my best to pack on as much as I can to reach full opacity. The orange and yellow shades in this palette have absolutely no issues performing absolutely spectacularly. These are all absolutely solid shades in this palette. So you can see here, despite all of that, I am still able to get a pretty nice solid orange look on my eyelid. I then add just a little bit of dimension using a yellow or orange shade. I'm taking the product left on the brush to run along my lower lash line. I was really packing on shadow, so there is definitely a lot of leftover product on that brush. And then finally, I'm going to take that yellow-orange shade from earlier to just blend it out. I'm now going to go back over and define the cut crease line using an angled brush, and I'm using the dark blue just to build it up a little bit more. And then I'm going to take what's left on the brush and again run it on the outer third of my lower lash line. I decided that my inner corners were looking a bit blank, so I took what was left on the brush to just have some diffused orange along the inner corners of my eyes. Finally, I'm going to be taking the lightest color shade in the palette, and I'm just going to be blending out everything. So now you can see I added some eyeliner for some dimension, just to kind of rescue the look a little bit, and I also put some eyeliner on the inner corner of my lower lash line, kind of in the waterline. You've definitely seen me do this a bunch. I also did go ahead and cheat a little bit. I took a champagne colored shimmer shadow stick and I ran that across the middle of my lower lash line. I felt my lower lash line was just looking too heavy, and this really helped brighten it up a little bit. Overall, I really like this look. I made everything else on my face warm toned, and then I just have a neutral MLBB lip gloss. From a distance, everything actually looks pretty good. The eyeliner definitely helped add some structure. Lastly, I am going to be using this look as a chance to explore the top row shades that garnered the most amount of criticism. I can't really remember my experience with these because I use these kinds of shades so infrequently, so I definitely wanted to give these a try. I am going to be taking this grayer colored shade, and I'm just using this as kind of my transition shade where everything else is going on top. And then I thought, oh well, that's a little bit too skeletal, so I'm just going to warm up the orbital bone a little bit with a warmer colored shade. As you can see, I'm just kind of keeping this concentrated on the outer corner and along my orbital bone. And then I'm gonna kind of start running that shade along my lower lash line for a little bit more warmth as well. Next, I'm taking what honestly I think is a pretty bad shade. This shade absolutely had trouble packing on, and then when you blend it out, it kind of fades, and it starts fading really quickly. I primed my eyes before this, so I definitely wasn't expecting it to fade, so I felt like I had to keep packing and packing and packing, and yet it would just kind of vanish. And it didn't even fall out all over my face either, it just was gone. I had no idea where it went. So as you can see, I'm just doing a whole lot of packing to try and get it to the intensity that it looks in the pan. And then I'm gonna just blend out the top yellow shade. As mentioned before, the yellow shade is great. All the warm shades in this palette performed really well. And then I'm going to run that color along the outer half of my lower lash line. Finally, I'm going to highlight the inner corner of my eyes and the inner part of my lower lash line with a matte bone shade here. I am not using any shimmer in this look this time, so it was just that color, and then I tried to blend out everything a little bit. And now you can see I added some mascara. As I was curling my lashes and putting on mascara, the eyeshadow faded again, so I had to pack on more eyeshadow again while I was getting everything ready. Also, I lied. I did end up using shimmer on my lower lash line. I must have been really disappointed with this look, but you can see even from far away, every time I blink or if I look down, you can see some creasing and some patching, which is highly unusual for my skin type. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.